Hey guys, thank you so much for having me. My name is Byron Tardif. I'm a principal program manager with the App Service team, and I'm here to talk to you about what's new in Azure for .NET developers. Um, so I have three things. I don't have a lot of slides. I usually like to dive right straight into the demos. So I know that this was a question that was coming up: is when is .NET 10 going to be available for App Service? The answer to that is we're rolling it right now. So if you're using an App Service Linux instance, that is globally available. So pretty much if you already have a .NET 10 app, all you might need to do is restart it to make sure that you're getting the latest, greatest bits with that. On App Service Windows, we're on the second stage out of 5. So we expect that to be fully rolled out by the end of the week, but I'm going to go show that a little bit more in a demo coming up. The next stuff is, everybody's talking about Aspire. So I'm going to show you end-to-end grabbing a template and getting it ready and deployed into App Service. So that's going to be the most part of the demo. And then at the end, we're going to look at a couple other features that are available for you, whether you're using .NET, Aspire, or any of the other languages that we support. Think of this as platform features, the things that App Service gives you so that you're more efficient and have time to focus more on your code rather than managing your application. Okay, with that, let's roll right in. So the first thing, this is when you will know that we've actually completed the rollout. This is the web app create, but you will also have similar experience when you already have an app and you want to check the runtime of your app. So right now it says preview because we're still in the phase of rollout. But once we're done, this thing right here will basically go away. So expect to see it by Friday. That preview tag will go away. And if you're impatient, you can just try and restart your application. And sometimes that will trigger your app to pull down the latest, greatest bits. If you're, for whatever reason right now, you're still seeing RC bits, that's something you can try. And you will be getting .NET 10 GA bits as soon as they're available. Just to reiterate, right now for App Service Linux, fully deployed worldwide. App Service Windows, we're still on stage 2 out of 5, and we expect that to complete by the end of the week. Okay, so you don't have to take my word for it. Let's actually look at an app. So this is just a web app. It's my .NET Conf app. We'll come back to it later in the demo, but I just want to call it out. And what I've done is, this is just, I think this is the MVC .NET new MVC web app, and all I've added is the output here to show you what version I'm running. So this is from the perspective of the code. I'm running on .NET 10 GA bits. And then one more way to demonstrate it is this is SSH into the instance. You can see right here that I have the .NET 10 runtime. And another thing I want to call out, because this is new for .NET 10, is our images are now based on Ubuntu. We used to be based on Debian, but starting with .NET 10, that's a change that you will see. We're making this change just because we like the servicing aspect of Ubuntu is a little bit more robust than what we were getting with Debian. And it's also aligned with what the .NET team is doing as far as the images that they're putting out. They're only putting out Ubuntu images. So this makes it very easy for us to service and do all of the monthly updates and refreshes of the app to make sure that the OS and the environment in which your app is running is always safe, secure, and up to date. Okay, so that wraps it up for the .NET 10 part of the demo. So now let's switch over into what we're going to do with Aspire. And I'm literally starting with an empty project, right? Like all you can see is I have my little instructions cheat sheet and a git ignore. And I've, git init this repository, but that's about it. So we're going to walk step by step here, generating an Aspire template, and then deploying it to App Service and showing you everything that you have to do different, if you will, to target App Service as your compute layer or provider. So there's a couple of prerequisites that I'm going to have to fulfill. So I've already gone and installed everything, but I just want to make sure that I show you that I have it. So first, let's see what SDKs I have installed. I have .NET 10. I'm obviously already in VS Code, so that's already done. You could also use Visual Studio. I'm just using VS Code for the sake of this demo. Then I need to make sure that I have the Azure Developer CLI, which is ACD. I think this is the right command. Well, it's installed and I'm a version behind, but that's fine. It should just work for what I'm doing right now. And then I also have the Aspire CLI installed. And you can see that I'm targeting version 13, which is the latest, greatest Aspire version. If you don't have any of these requirements, this is the WinGet instructions on how to install them. And don't worry, we have a blog coming out pretty soon that will have all of this spelled out with a little bit more advanced scenarios as well. Okay, so I have my prereqs. So what's the next thing I need to do? Well, I need to have a directory where I'm going to put this project, and I'll already have this Aspire one. So let's just jump right in. And this is going to use the Aspire CLI to give me that first initial scaffolding. And I use Git so that I can show you exactly what are the changes that I'm doing. So let's name this project. So bk.net conf demo. I want to, yep, that's fine. I'm going to target 13. And I don't want to build a test project for now. I'm just going with the simplest thing that I can right now. And the scaffolding, what it's doing is you're looking at it, it's creating this folder, and there's a bunch of little projects in there. I'm not going to go into detail as to what each one of these folders does. I think either Demian or the Aspire folks do a better job of explaining that. But all you have to think about it is there's a web application, which is the front end. There's an API service, which is the back end. And there's the app host where I'm defining my environment. So there's a bunch of stuff here. I'm just going to go yes, add all of that to my commit. And this is the template. Okay. So right now, at this point, I've done nothing except just generate the Aspire starter template. So now the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add the package reference to the Aspire provider. So the way this works is we the App Service team, work with the Aspire team to make sure that we have a provider that is able to target App Service as the host for your application. And the output is that NuGet package. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my project, and I'm going to go into the app host, because that's basically the only part of this project that needs to know about App Service. And I'm going to add the package reference. So actually, before I do that, let's take a look at what the CS looks like. Right, so it has a reference to the web and the API service, and there's a bunch of other stuff here that is very like standard .NET stuff. So let's go ahead and add the package reference. And I'm going to leverage my handy dandy Git diff to look at the difference here. So literally all this is doing is adding the Aspire package reference, right? That's all this is doing. Okay. So now I have the Aspire package reference. Let me snapshot this. Adding app service target. And now the next step that we need to do is we need to make a couple of changes to our app host to actually target App Service, right? So with the NuGet package, it knows how to. With this references, it's now actually going to go and do that target. So I'm going to go open my apphost.cs, and I'm going to drop these two things in here. So the first one is you're basically going to target App Service. And this is just, I'm reminded to remind you that this is the App Service environment concept in Aspire. We're not targeting an App Service environment resource in Azure. Right now, I'm just targeting a default App Service plan with whatever is our predetermined standard SKU. There's ways to modify that. I'm not going to do it for this demo, just making clear because that name can be a little bit confusing. So now it knows that it's going to go target app service environment, and I have one more change that I need to do here, which is I want to do external endpoints. Okay. So this is my second change. So in the first change, all we did was add the NuGet package reference so that I can then go and use it and say, yeah, I want to target app service. And keep in mind, right now what I'm doing is the most basic minimum thing. There's a lot of other config that you can add to, for example, enable application insights, change the SKU that you want to target, etc. But right now this is minimum, getting you up there as soon as and as fast as possible. Okay, so I'm going to leverage the auto-generated PR comments there. Okay, let's go back to our handy-dandy instructions. And the next step is getting it up to the cloud. I'm not going to do the auth login because I already did it, just to save time and not have to, flash my password in the middle of this. But we're going to do ACD init. So ACD init, what it's going to do now, I'm actually in the wrong directory. And let's try that again. So ACD init, what it's going to do is it's going to look at my solution and it's going to try to determine what it is that I'm trying to deploy or run. And it's going to take a second while it scans, but it should find that we're running an Aspire project and that we're going to be targeting app service as our compute target. Let's just give it a second. There we go. So it found that it's Aspire project, and I want to continue initializing my app, and let's give it a unique name, .NET Conf 2025. Okay, so now at this point, you can see in the diff that we got a bunch of other stuff. So if I look at the files, it created this Azure .Azure folder where there's like a bunch of information about what I'm going to be doing. But the key things is you don't want to include that folder in your commits. So if you're checking this into your code, that's why there's that git ignore. Then there's this YAML file which defines the project, etc. This all just metadata to help us target the right deployment. And if you don't have me telling you what to do, it also generates this next steps.md file. You can look at it. It has a lot of information as to, okay, once you've initialized, what is the next thing that you want to do with ACD, depending on if you're setting this up on a CI/CD pipeline or if you're just doing a deployment directly from your client. For my purposes, I don't need this because I know what I'm doing. So I'm just going to exclude it from my commit, and we're just going to do another one. So ACD init. Okay, so now at this point, I'm ready to do ACD up. And ACD up, what it's going to do is going to look at that configuration that got created as part of the ACD init process, and it's going to decide what are the resources that it's going to have to create on Azure to host your application. So it's going to ask me a couple of questions just to make sure that we're getting it in the right description. I have like 247 subscriptions, but let's use this one. And then we're going to target East US. Sure, I'm close to East US. And now this is going to take about 5 minutes. It's going to go and provision all of the resources, but we're going to pretend that we're in a cooking show. And I'm going to fast forward to something that I already have deployed. And then we can come back and check and make sure that this actually worked. But just to summarize, I started with an empty directory that just had git ignore and some instructions. I ran the template that gave me about 77 files. I added the reference to the app service NuGet package. And then I told my app host that I wanted to target app service. And then I did the ACD init to get all of the metadata and information necessary so that I could do the deployment, and then ACD up to actually go and push my application up into the portal. So let's take a look at what that looks like. Okay, so this is, like I said, pretend that we're in a cooking show. This is something that I deployed earlier. But you're going to see that what I'm going to get is a bunch of different resources, right? So I have both the API and the web front end that are web apps that represent those two projects that we talked about earlier, as well as the app service plan that represents the compute, if you will, where those resources are running. Right now, if you notice, both of my apps are going to be running on the same app service plan. A next feature that we want to do is we want to be able to let you configure and say this app and that app can be in independent app service plans so they can scale independently. The other really cool thing that we did is now we have built-in support for the Azure, for the Aspire dashboard that is just deployed there. And this is a platform feature. So, once it's deployed, you don't have to worry about it, right? We'll update it and keep it evergreen for you. There's the Azure Azure Container Registry, where we're pushing the container images that represent both the web and API images for the app, as well as the managed identities that are used to make sure that all of this stuff is talking to each other securely without you having to use passwords, etc. Okay, so let's look at the app up and running. So here we go. So, if you've seen an Aspire demo, you've seen them all, but it's the template app. There's nothing special to it beyond I just added this to make sure that I can show that it's running in .NET 10 on App Service. I have the counter that I can click a bunch of times. And if I go to the dashboard, I'm able to see that, hey, look at this. So you should be able to see that it's the dashboard and it's running on App Service. Now, a really nice trick that we did here is the dashboard is sharing the same RBAC, so role-based access control, that you would have to your application. So only the people that are able to go and actually modify the application are going to have access to the dashboard, right? So it's not something that is publicly exposed. Only if you have the right set of permissions. So if you cannot go and deploy to the app, you won't be able to go and look at the dashboard. And if you want to give somebody access, all you need to do is give them access to the application and they automatically gain access to the dashboard. Okay. Yeah, and right now, this is again, this is the first cut. You can think of it as the first cut. We get the Aspire dashboard resource, and you click on it, and it takes you to Aspire dashboard resource. And what's happening behind the scenes is that single sign-on to make sure that only the people that have access to the app will have access to the dashboard. As far as the dashboard goes, is the dashboard that you already know and love. So there's nothing else to show you here except that it's up and running and working on App Service. Okay. So let's go back and make sure that that actually deployed. Looks like we're almost done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to show you some of the new features that are available on apps. Oh, actually, it looks like it just completed. So let's take a look at that again, just to double check that everything is working. So let's hit the front end. Yes, I want to open. Drum roll. Give it a second to start. And there we go. Okay, so you can see that this is different because I don't have the other stuff that I added to the one that I deployed earlier, where we have the .NET version, etc. Okay, so that was end-to-end. We started with nothing, and we ended with an application with an Aspire app running on App Service, having a web front end, an API, as well as the Aspire dashboard. Okay, so now I'm going to jump into some of the new features that we have for App Service. And this is, this applies to you if you're a .NET developer, but we love all developers the same. So if you're deploying code or containers to your app, if you're deploying .NET, Java, whatever, all of these are platform features that are going to help you do and be more effective with your job. So the first thing is, so this is my .NET app, the one that I showed you earlier, just to demonstrate that it's running .NET 10. I have a home and I have an error page. The only reason the error page is here is so I can generate an error log. So the first feature that I want to show you is the new log streaming. So you'll find it in the TOC, so right here, log streaming. And there's a couple of new things here. So the first thing is we let you select, what level of error, warning, verbose you want to see, right? Sometimes when you're looking at an app, there's a lot of traffic coming in. You don't necessarily care about everything. So you can focus on specifically, for example, the errors. And there you go, nicely color-coded errors. I can also switch between runtime and platform logs. So you can think as runtime are the logs that you're going to be emitting from inside your code. And platform is the stuff that's going on behind the scenes, like before your application even starts. What is the platform doing to make sure that your app is up and running? So you can switch those two views. The other thing is this app scaled out. So it's scaled out to 3 instances. And sometimes what happens is not all instances are behaving correctly. So you might have one instance that is misbehaving. So this lets you target the specific instance that you want to focus and look at to make sure that you're only getting the traffic that is happening for that specific instance. And then finally, we have a look back period, right? So you're not always sitting there in the portal waiting for the next log event to come in. Sometimes you might want to look back at, this is file based. So it's on a revolving log. So, you can go back up to 90 minutes if there's enough logs there that you can actually see, as well as stream the new logs as they are coming in. Again, this is specifically for inner loop. So when you're doing the action of writing a little bit of code, deploying to your app, testing it with a little bit of load, seeing what's happening, this is what you want to be using. For production scenarios where you're not necessarily sitting there monitoring the app, make sure that you're setting up log analytics, etc., so that you can get alerts, right? That's the powerful part there. The next feature that I want to talk about is async scaling. So this is something that you can configure for your apps. This is a feature that is rolling out. You might not see in the portal just yet, but it will start flighting pretty soon. And what this does is especially useful for manual or rules-based autoscale. So we usually run the platform with enough buffers that we can accept, people going from 3 instances to 30 instances. But every now and then there's weekends, like I think Black Friday is coming up. Singles Day was a couple days ago when a bunch of apps decide that they want to host the world's traffic with 0 notice. And before, the platform would basically reject your scale operation if you were going beyond what was available from the platform's perspective. So if you asked for 30 instances, but we could only give you 5 or 10, you would get rejected, and then you would have to try again and say, okay, 5, and then you would get 5, and then you would have to try again to get 10, etc. So this basically takes care of that, right? You can set this to 30, and if we don't have 30 to give you, we'll give you what we have. And as we have the process behind the scenes that goes and add scale to the units of scale that we have where your apps are hosted, we will add more instances to your app as they become available. But you don't have to be there monitoring and retrying. And finally, the last thing that I want to show you is this new instances tab. So this new instances tab lets you see, like I said before, when you have more than one instance, when you're scaled out, you can see that the status there could be different. The other really cool thing that you can do is you can actually see, what physical zone you're deployed on. So when you have enable availability zones for your application, that means that different instances of your app are deployed to different physical divisions within the data center. So this gives you insight into that. If you've had errors, you can see some of those platform errors, and there's some repair operations that are shown here as well. But those are like 3 really cool, exciting new features that we have for the platform. We hope that you can start using them, as soon as they become available for you. They're rolling out starting this week. We expect to see a lot of you already having access to them by the end of the week. And yeah, that wraps it up for me.